I'm Anne Choquette, CEO of TheLi.st. I am so thrilled to have you here to launch The Healer's Playbook by Darlene Cordero, a love letter to the healing community and a guide for wellness entrepreneurs. My goal is to empower them to create thriving, purpose-driven businesses and lives filled with meaning and joy. I'm so grateful to have you here, Darlene. Just briefly, by way of introduction, and I know that Fatima will share more about you, but Darlene and I first encountered each other when we were working together on a summit that TheLi.st did, our first big summit. And she was working with Deepak Chopra. And immediately I felt trusted and seen, and also trusted and saw you in return, and was so grateful for your support, and that the work we were doing at TheLi.st sparked for you. And I know that like the world has turned in 4 million degrees since we saw each other for the first time 4 years ago. But I'm so grateful to you for being here and for being part of TheLi.st's journey. And Fatima, who is our community manager at TheLi.st, Fatima Farmer, who has her own thought leadership, her own practice, her own business, as a meditation and breathwork facilitator. And I knew that the two of you would like instantly find connection in each other. And so I'm so grateful for this conversation to start. I'm going to let Fatima lead us. I'm going to mute myself, and I will be here to moderate you. Let me know what you need. I'm here in service of you in this conversation today. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. And welcome everyone that's here and also those who are watching later. I'm Fatima, and I am just so honored to hold space, to be in space, be in community with you all. As Anne mentioned, I am a certified mindfulness meditation instructor and a breathwork facilitator, and I am just so excited about this conversation with Darlene. I think before we even dive in, if you all are open to it, I would love to actually just open us in a little bit of guided breathing. It'll be really simple, but I think it'll just like ground us and bring in this conversation beautifully. So if you're open to that, all you have to do is really just wherever you're seated, I would just say bring a little alertness into your body. So just sitting up nice and tall, allowing your shoulders to drop and relax. And if you feel comfortable, just go ahead and close your eyes. And without changing anything, just notice how you feel in this moment. Notice if there's any tension being held anywhere in your body. And I'm going to invite you to bring your left hand to your heart center and your right hand right over your belly. And together, we're going to take a few deep breaths in through our nose, filling your belly with air and exhaling out through your mouth. Again, inhaling through your nose, allowing your belly to rise and fill with air. And on the exhale, letting out a sigh. Last one, making it your best one, in through your nose, belly fills with air. Ribs expand, breathing in a little bit more air before you let it go. And on that exhale, letting out a loud sigh. And maybe just taking your hands with your eyes still closed and just rub them together, just creating some energy, some warmth. Taking all of that energy, stagnant energy from this week, from this month, from the election, whatever you're feeling, just imagining that you're bringing it into your hands and just shake it out. Just begin to shake it out, just shaking your hands, removing that energy. Taking more deep breaths if you need to. And when you feel ready, you can allow your hands to relax. And you can open your eyes and meet me back here in the space. So as you're popping back in, I would love for you to just share, even if it's just one word in the comments, like how you're feeling, just a word, a thought, a color, anything, an emoji. I always like to do a little check-in after those reset moments just to see how we're feeling. And as you're doing that, I'm going to share why I am so excited to dive into this conversation with Darlene. Obviously, we have the wellness connection, but I think that one of the most beautiful things that Anne just shared is like that instant feeling of trusted and seen. I can totally relate to that. From our first conversation as community manager and just learning about your story and your background, and then also getting my hands on this beautiful book here. It has just been so awesome to just see a piece of, to experience a piece of you in this way. And it kind of just feels like an extension of our conversation. So I am so excited. So I would love to, I think because the people here and a lot of people who might watch it, they may already know your background, your story, your history as far as like your career. But I'd love to start this conversation with hearing directly from you. Who are you? How would you describe yourself to the world?
Well, I just want to start by thanking Anne. Thank you for creating this space. Has been a support to me, and I'm so excited to be part of it. And the members have been just since I think earlier this year that I became a member, have been very supportive to my book, to me, to just conversations. And Fatima, thank you so much. I feel that yeah, to the point of like how I would describe myself. I feel very passionate about people. I love meeting new people. I love people's stories. I love understanding how we've gotten to this place when I meet someone. I love specifically connection and community. And it drives my soul. It really does. And so I think I've reflected everyone. I encourage you to, write your book, write a narrative of your life because it's just such a beautiful experience to be able to reflect. And one of the things in this process of writing this book, which really is about the business of wellness in a very practical, mission focused way. But it really gave me the opportunity to think about my life and how community has always been in the center of that. Growing up in New York City from an immigrant family, we always, connection to community was always part of that.
Mm,
Um, and so, from the choir at church to,
mm,
the, the growing up in New York City in the 70s and 80s, the neighborhood grandmother and like the neighborhood, just like that. It was always at the core of my life. And
mm,
I really feel passionate about that. So that's the way I would describe myself because
yeah.
that is really, and I love supporting other people and helping them. It is, I don't know if it's because I'm a Virgo, if we're into that, but
Mm,
Virgos are very much known to be, in service. And that really
mhm.
is at the core of my work is being in service to individuals, but humanity on these specific things that I'm very passionate about as wellness and diversity and inclusion and access. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I'm curious if you could maybe take us back a little bit to like that moment when you decided it was time to put the Healer's Playbook out into the world and what that looked like because your journey you have seemed like you have already accomplished so many amazing things like working with Jay Shetty and Deepak and all of these amazing things that you've accomplished in the wellness space. I'm curious to know what was that moment like for you that you said, okay, I now need to kind of put things out into the world and be of service in this way. What was that like for you?
I I think that given I had a few losses in my life the recently as of my dad passed away and my godmother. I talk about it in the book. And when I was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer last year,
Mm,
that really pushed me to these moments in our lives. We all have them, either through loss of a job or someone that we love or a personal experience as a diagnosis. It's not a strange thing. We all are experiencing that. And when those moments do happen, it is in many ways an opportunity for us to reflect on our lives and reflect on our paths and what we've done. And so when I got the diagnosis, I had already started thinking about a book, and it was about community, of course. The idea was about community. I was thinking about relationships, and that maybe that will be the second book.
Mhm.
And then I started thinking, okay, what is a practical thing I can do that's already kind of half baked? And I didn't want to go through at the moment, I didn't want to go through the process of finding an agent and going through that whole process. I was like, I want to get this out on my terms and my timeline. And so I decided to take something I already had, which was a mentorship I had created when I launched Wellness Culture
Mhm.
2 years ago when I left working with Deepak, and I said, well, I have the playbook, and that's how it all came together. I have the playbook for practitioners to be able to create sustainable and mission-driven businesses. So let me start with that. And it was really more of that practical mindset of mine, being like, okay, this is something I could actually do. And of course, like the storytelling about my journey to that point wasn't written, and all of that wasn't part of it. But last year, exactly a year ago in October, I went to a women's retreat that I helped organize it with my dear friend and mentor, Tanya O'Connor, that was at Univision.
Mhm.
And we had a very small women's retreat at her home in Maine. And I was just, if there was like a channel of like, there was this thing, this is why people go to a cabin to write, or they go somewhere away. And it was, I think it was like the wave. She's in Kennebunkport, and it was just all of it. I was like, I'm writing this thing. And I wrote out the intro and just how I wanted to structure it. And so with that space and that ability to be in nature and connection to women and that support, I was able to get it going that
Yeah.
ago. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And honestly, I would say like just as reading it as a wellness practitioner, this felt like this felt like the book that I wish I had when I first decided to go on this journey, right? Like just figuring out these very practical pieces, but also the spiritual, the values, the why, how is this connected to a deeper purpose beyond just teaching meditation classes. So I'm grateful for seeing this come to life. But I think I shared this with you when we first talked about it. But there's an excerpt at the beginning where you're sharing your story that I really would love to just share with everyone, and I would love to kind of hear your thoughts about like where you were when you decided to include this. But it's in the very beginning where you're talking about your diagnosis, and it says, "This diagnosis was something I chose to surrender to rather than fight against. My years of spiritual learning and being surrounded by masters of ancient wisdom had prepared me, in a sense, for this moment. I realized that my journey wasn't about fighting; it was about accepting and moving forward with the support of many angels, both spiritually and earthly." And then there's another line, like a few paragraphs down, that says, "Living with this diagnosis is now a part of my daily reality." And I underline those points because I think to some extent, regardless of what challenges we're facing, everyone kind of can have that moment where they have to make a choice, right? Of, am I going to allow this challenge that I'm experiencing stop me from doing the thing, or is it going to propel me to, as you say, live boldly, right? To to lean in even further. So I would love to just hear your thoughts around sharing that piece in the book.
Well, I got emotional, so started crying. So there you go. We'll start with that. Yeah, it's real,
Yeah.
raw, and it's the reality of life. And I could have chosen, because I've seen that many people that fight it and have this sense of, I'm going to fight this thing and I'm going to beat it. And by the way, whatever language we use that feels right for us, I think we use, right? Because we
Right.
all have different um, connections to words and the feeling. But I feel a lot of the fighting is what got me to this point. And so a lot of the hustle and a lot of that energy of trying to do all the things and create all the things and be there for everyone and all of these things that we do as women. And I just wanted to just soften and be in such like that co-creation, even with a piece of me that is my body is currently not cooperating with me. And so the way I wanted to do this, I wanted to embrace this process was really to surrender to what it is. And I feel very privileged and very honored to have these, like I said, like these masters and individuals in my life that have given me this opportunity to see what it is to be living in this way, and then have the ability to speak this way and share and love myself in that way. I think it's so loving for us to, even when things are not the most positive or the most like the way we imagined it, that we can still love ourselves and love our bodies and love our every part of ourselves. Like I have to say, the version of me now completely loves myself compared to the version of me before the diagnosis. And so that's how I've embraced this. And I really do believe it's helped my outlook. It's helped me write this book. It's helped me continue to talk about it. Because I always imagine like, okay, what's the other option? The other option is that I'm in bed. I would not be having conversations with you all. I would not be having this conversation or even written the book if I would have leaned into the not so great parts of this or the uncertainty, because I think that this is where we are, right? Like I think that this example of what I'm experiencing is not unique to me. I think we all are experiencing uncertainty, and uncertainty makes us feel that we have no control. But the reality is that we do have control. We have control over how we feel, how we take care of ourselves, how we take care of each other. And so in that, there's action. There is action. And with that action, it feels you feel more supported. And I think that that's with everything that's happening with the election, with decisions being made outside of what we think we have control of, we still do have control because we have control about how we react, right? We talk about that often. It's how people speak to us or circumstances, but we do have control over that. And it's a softening versus a hardening, because even those words, when we hear fighting, like we like what happens, our body, like, kind of gets, when we say, oh, I surrender. Oh, okay. Like it feels different in our cells, in our soul. And so that has been my focus. I'm not saying the easiest, by the way. I'm not saying I don't have bad days. I cry. I do. I'm emotional. I've definitely been sad and depressed. I would say it could be depressing but then I give myself a few days and then I go, okay, let's keep going here. Yeah, long winded answer to that, but yeah, it's the
Yeah,
way.
no, that's great. Thank you for sharing that. I'm actually curious if you could go maybe a little bit deeper for us and share like some of the practical things, like in addition to crying. Crying is very practical to me. I'm a crier. I'm an advocate of crying. But I would love to know like what other things you found really supportive and things that other women or anyone watching, any leaders in the community in the space that maybe is experiencing a challenge, right? And it's like, what do I do in those moments when I need to regain focus and to maybe be resilient and keep going? How does one do that?
I think everyone they know their inner, what they actually need. So I tell this, a lot of people ask me this question regarding, oh, I know someone that has a diagnosis. Like, what advice would you give them? I get
Mm,
that a lot. And I say, my response is stay still and
mm,
quiet, and you'll know what you need.
mm,
Because I'm not and you could see when reading the book, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm
mm,
I'm posing the questions for you to find the answers, because what we tend to do is look outwardly for
Mhm.
all these answers. We look for people to tell us what to do, the doctors to tell us what to do, and I really my idea is that I think that this whole thing of what life is for us to really connect with ourselves in the most
Mhm.
deepest way. And when these challenges occur in our lives, or when there is this not sure what to do next, or uncertainty in our lives, that is the moment for us in whatever way that is for you. So it could be prayer for someone, it could be writing for someone, it could be, being in service for, like, we really do know if we stay still and we quiet our mind and our heart and we are able to kind of have that connection through prayer, meditation, whatever that is for someone, what you need personally.
Mhm.
So I start with that, and I tell people that all the time when I hear people ask me, like, oh, you look fine, or you look like you're figuring it out, like, what did you do? And
Yeah.
I say, actually, I can't tell you. I've really stood in the rawness of it and looked at it and stood really still in my meditation practice and really went inward to explore that for myself.
Mhm.
And one of the things that's been helpful for me has been sharing. That's not
Mhm.
everyone, but that's been my way of really healing through this process, is sharing the story. Hence why I
Mhm.
wrote the book. Yeah.
Yeah, that I think that ties in perfectly to this idea of, I think you call it bonus life, bonus living, and and just like living boldly.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
would love to hear more of how you have been leaning into that. Like, was it just like this instant switch where you just woke up one day and you're like, I'm going to live boldly every single day, or is it more of like an active choice that you have to make?
Thank you. And the bonus era.
Bonus era, thank you.
It just, everyone was talking about the Taylor Swift era or whatever, and I was like, oh, on that. It's the bonus era. Um, it is, and it goes really, I feel like I have a little bit more, it's interesting in my mind. The way I've thought about it is I have like this extra time. Many
Mhm,
people that have diagnosis like myself or other situations, it happens, and they don't have a lot of time left to kind of get things in order or to get their lives kind of to do the things that they wanted to do. And I feel so fortunate that
mhm,
I have this thing that's in front of me that I can't ignore. Because we all have a time. I know we all think, and I've said this, and I don't want to be a pessimist, but we all think we're going to be around forever. And I know that's our desires. We don't want to leave. We don't want to leave our families, our children, our communities, our lives, our existence behind. But the reality is that we all have this destiny.
mhm,
And I really feel passionate about the fact that and happy that I have the opportunity to have this kind of thing in front of me that gives me this urgency to create. And I think the creativity in this bonus era for me, it has been all about creativity. And I have found that within that creativity, I feel connected to source, whatever we want to call it, the
mhm,
creator, source, the infinite universe, whatever that is. It really, in that creativity of writing, I have a bunch of, like, I want to paint, I've been painting, I've been doing different things that feel really, I feel alive, right? I feel connected, or even traveling and seeing different places in the world. And so I feel very fortunate. And so it is an active and it is an intentional
mhm,
practice to decide that I'm going to go and do. Again, it is a choice that I have made given the circumstances. And so we all have that chance, and you all don't need to have what's happened to me happen. You can see
mhm,
my example and you can say, okay, well, okay, I'm not there. I don't have terminal illness. I don't have anything that is, you know, but the reality is that I didn't expect it. I had no
mhm,
reason to think that I would be in the circumstance. And so take advantage of those moments that you do have of your, having your health, fully, getting your checkups and seeing that you're healthy and being able to have your children around and your family and friends. And I think that the practice of gratitude has been a huge piece for me. Gratitude, I think, is literally the biggest practice that anyone can, because if you focus on what you do have, then the rest is just not as, it's not that focal point of how you're seeing your life. And I don't come from a very positive environment. I come from an immigrant family that everything was like a problem, and it's like the first conversation is always what's wrong versus what's right. And so I've had to really work and rewire my brain to say, oh no, that's not how we're thinking. And
Mm,
lots of books, lots of therapy.
yeah.
But we get to the point where I'm focused. I have a jar, actually, like this is my jar every
Oh, I
week,
love that.
right? One thing, and I noticed that even on the weeks that it's not necessarily positive, I still write something positive that happened, and I'm not bypassing what's not great, but
Yeah,
I'm choosing to focus on the great things. And this feels really like a tangible thing I could do every week.
yeah.
On Sundays I do it, and it's awesome. At the end of the year, I look back and I'm like, wow, look at all the things that I've gone so well in my life.
Mhm.
So,
I love that. I might have to start implementing
oh,
that
it's so
actually.
fun. It was a Jay Shetty. I saw a video that he did. Oh, yay! Yay!
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
It's so fun. And yeah, I did it last year, and I realized, and I kind of put them in categories because I realized there was a lot of there were themes.
Mm,
I love seeing like and it was like community was like the stack
mm,
of like where it really, and it made a huge difference last year when I got diagnosed. Like I was enveloped with love and support. And I really do believe it's helped me stay really healthy mentally, physically. And this
mm.
is why these communities are so important. And I'm so excited to be here and just to be able to continue to support everyone here. If I can be of any support, please know that I'm here for that.
Yeah. Actually, on that note, I would love to kind of talk a little bit about like one of the themes that you really highlight in the book is around building authentic relationships and like really leveraging the power of community. And of course, in your from your view, it's in a wellness sense, but I think that can really resonate with anyone, right? Regardless of what space or industry you work in, building authentic relationships is so key, and having a community to leverage is really pivotal for a lot of people. So I would love to hear your thoughts around that, what your experience has been like with that, and what um, different members in our community can take with them if that's something that they're really leaning into.
Um, I think that it's not always natural. I think when a friend of mine told me that, I'm like, I just feel like I can make connections. And I remember someone saying that's not easy for everyone. So I just want to just say that it's not an easy thing for everyone to be so um, just, it's not their personality, and that's okay. And I don't think anybody should try to be anything that they're not, but understanding in ways that you can push yourself or challenge yourself to have deeper connections. It will help us not feel as lonely. I know, and
Mhm.
this is like one of the big, topics and initiatives you have. And I think it's so important. It's hard to live in this world without connections and people to take away that, this, you know, epidemic that we have with loneliness. And from that place, I think it's understanding like what types of relationships am I looking or seeking or needing right now? Where am I what is it that I'm missing? Right? Because I think we all growing up, we have schools, friends at school or college, and growing up in our neighborhood, whatever that is. And as we become adults, a lot of our colleagues become our friends, and that sometimes shifts from when we move from place to place. I think that ultimately it's about what I really, at the core, I think it's about us being genuinely interested in other people. When we're genuinely interested in asking the questions of, how are you? Or how can I be of service to you? Or what's going on in your life that can be that maybe I can not maybe directly support you, but maybe I know of someone. And I think that relationships for me are all about that. It's about being of support and joy and laughter and being able to enjoy moments together where there's this, connection either through interests or initiatives or our mission or and just finding those people that are also in like-minded. And I'll give the example when I first went to yoga. 15 years ago, I went to Kripalu for the first time, which is a beautiful retreat center. I was living in the East Coast, and I knew I just wanted to be able to be in a place like that. I knew no one in this space. And
Mhm.
it took me a while to be able to then 10 years later to go into a yoga studio in Brooklyn and go into a room where no one sounded or looked like me. But I kept on pushing myself because I was like, I really like this. I like yoga. I want to be able to learn about it. And it was awkward and it was uncomfortable because my body didn't do the things that the yoga teacher was doing. And I was like, I don't know if I'll be able to ever do that. But there was something about being on the mat that I felt like this inner calling for. Like it was like something I knew I needed to be there. And I didn't know why or how or where it would take me.
Mhm.
But I think that when we have these interests, and then that's how I met a lot of these individuals that then I did my teacher training. I think that inner whisper or that inner knowing, and you go and you put yourself in these circumstances that you're just like, I don't know what I'm doing in this room, but I'm just gonna go with it. You would be surprised how there's just a knowing that it's like whispers from your soul telling you, okay, go this path, like explore that, see
Mhm.
what happens. And I really do follow those inner that those little whispers because they've
Yeah.
gotten me to where I am today. So I listen to them very much so. So yeah, it is about that interest and community and being open and I think that even people that are not naturally like are shy can find people in these spaces that they feel that they can open up to. So
Mhm.
I hope that
Yeah.
answers.
It does, yeah. I can definitely resonate with that. One of the things that I thought was so beautiful in the book is how you incorporated the importance of your values, right? Like making decisions that are really aligned with your values. So I was wondering if you could speak a little bit to how, I guess, even like, how did you get to a point where you felt so clear on what your values were? And then you allow those values to then guide you to make some really courageous decisions, right? Even when the outcome may have been uncertain. I'm curious, like, how does one get to that point?
The honest truth is I being in business my entire life, I really when I think I was not even like 20, I was already in banking and I saw I learned so much. I feel like I had the business school of just understanding business and individuals and learning. Again, going back to patterns, I've like learned a lot by like example for what
Mm,
people were doing around me. Not having necessarily those examples growing up, but I knew that I had this inner understanding that I wanted more in my life. And I knew that those environments would provide that. And what I realized was that I was able to see that a lot of these structures of like when we talk about a business and their values and their mission were
mm,
very much applicable to people, right? And
mm,
it was like it was like, oh, so if they value this, and it was more on the business side, and then then now we have more of that language and understanding of that.
mm,
But specifically with the practitioner, the teacher, the healer, I'm that this work in the healing arts or any artist in general, because I do believe this applies to authors and painters and the idea that we all are artists and we all are creators, no matter what job we have is that it's always centered in what someone values as something that this is why people have maybe not disagreements, or maybe, don't agree on something, yeah, or think that something rubs them the wrong way. It's usually aligned with their values of what they see, what is important to them or not. And
Mhm.
so I realized really early, and I think that that's why I'm making the connection to work, because that's where I learned about that. I learned that language there, and then it was easy for me to then see how that connection then on the healing side and their business really. And I did actually with Jay Shetty, I did his life coaching program, and that was like a really big piece of that work there, and it confirmed everything that I had already kind of studied and knew through the years about our values and our mission. It really is a guiding force for us to understand, like, if my values are, community, connection, and empowerment, like, then I know that everything that I do should be guided by that. Because then if not, if it's about isolation, I'm not going to be happy. Or if
Yeah,
it's, it's just not going to, I'm not going to be happy. And I think ultimately we sometimes don't value those things in ourselves to understand that, or and prioritize that. And that's when
right.
we have that empty feeling when we're doing projects and things, because
Yeah,
they're not, it's not connected to those values and what we find as important. And we
yeah.
all have that. In You have different values, and Anne has different values,
Mm.
and everyone on this call does. So that's
Yeah.
focused when, and I loved doing that in the book, because I think that we forget that.
Hmm. Yeah, I like to view values almost as like a compass, right?
Yes.
It's like between like intuition, that gut feeling, and just like that those values that are core to me. That's like my compass to always check in with myself. Am I still in alignment? Am I still on the path that's bringing me the most joy, bringing me closer to joy? Right. So I totally can relate to that. But I also can recognize that in some instances, that can be scary, because if you recognize that you're doing something that's not aligned with the value, then you have a tough choice to make, right? It's like that may mean ending a relationship, that may mean quitting a job, that may be starting something new, writing a book. So I'm curious if you have any advice or guidance for those who might be in that space of like, okay, I'm ready to embrace this boldness and to move with courage in that space in their career or wherever they are in life. Like how do they kind of harness that if they realize they need to pivot?
It's hard work.
Mhm.
It's hard work, and ultimately we have to be ready to do the hard things in our lives. And I think it's easy, in many ways, just to stay in the norm and the path of what we've always done, and the status quo in our lives. But we stay really stagnant, and we stay pretty unhappy, probably, from just being in that place, because we are, as humans, always evolving, and we want, things are constantly changing, we're changing. And in many ways, it is the hardest thing. It's like, when you first go to therapy and you're unraveling everything that has happened in your childhood, and there are things that come up, and it's really hard work. And I think that this is the same. I think it's when you start doing that inner work of yourself, of understanding who you are, what you really want to create on this earth while you're here, your legacy, you have to be ready to do that work. And people, we talk about the work, right? So you
Mhm.
have to be ready for that. And but the I think the other side of it, similar to what I said, mentioned earlier, the other option doesn't, it's not very satisfying. For me to just
Yeah.
stay in that stagnant place doesn't bring any joy to me or the others around me, right? Because I'm staying unhappy, unwell. Probably it's going to affect my personal relationships, my work. And so it is honestly, like you said, all about being bold, and not, you don't really, what else do we have than to live boldly? I mean, what are we doing here if not we're
Yeah.
not challenging ourselves to be the most authentic versions of ourselves that we can while we are here, and
Mhm.
finding ways in which we could do it on our terms and our time, because everybody has a different timeline. In many ways, there's people that, blossom in their 60s, and there's other people that blossom, that everything kind of comes together for them in their 30s, and not comparing ourselves to anyone in that process, because we know what we're here to do if we really find and do that self-exploration.
Mhm. I love that. I would love to hear more about a particular part of the book that maybe took a lot of courage for you to write about or to share, or even like a favorite part that you have in your book that you want to share with everyone.
It's so funny. The first thing I thought about was it's the silliest part, but it's the dedication of the book to my son.
Oh.
It's just it's when you do the thank yous at the end, it's first of all, you can never put all the thank yous. You can't put ever, you can't write everything out. Of what all the things and people circumstances that got you to this place, but really writing and it's very simple. It wasn't anything too wild that I wrote at the end, but dedicating this book to my son means the world to me. He's an
Mm,
artist himself, and a painter, and a DJ, and he lives in New York City, running around in the subways and doing the things he does. And I've always described him as everything I would ever want to be, because
mm,
he's just so smart and intellectual, and um, he's such an artist. And
mm.
I raised him that way because I always, in many ways, I wanted to be that, free. Now I'm definitely that woo-woo free person. I live in California now, and no, I definitely am a lot more connected than I was before. And that's what it's about. It's our legacy. It's what we leave behind. It's the words and the projects and the things that we do that make an impact. And for me, this book is for the healer, for the practitioner, but it's all about my legacy and my son, and
Mm.
leaving this for him and for something that someone could pick up, years from now.
Yeah, I love that. That's so beautiful. So, so beautiful. So I have one last question that's kind of focused around like themes in the book, and then we'll start to close because I want to be mindful of everyone's time and also leave space if there's like questions at the end also. But one of the things that has come up a few times as well in reading through the book is around social media. And I know that for a lot of us, myself included, social media can be a challenging space of figuring out how to show up in a way that is engaging, but also thoughtful, aligned, right, with my values. So I'm curious if you have any guidance around that you can share with those listening around just showing up on social media in a way that feels aligned with who you are and what feels the most true to you.
I think so many people have a different perspective on social. I think a lot of people use, let's say, IG they have a specific model that they've learned from someone, and they're, doing the funnel, and there's like, take this story and then make it into these different, there's so many different theories about this. I all I have to say for yourself and for other people that are in wellness or not in wellness, I think that finding the the platform and the ways in which you feel the most natural and most activated and most alive when you're using social media that feel authentic to you is the way to do it. If something's not making you excited and happy, don't do it. It's sucking your soul. Otherwise, and we don't have enough energy to give it to anything but ourselves. And so I've been really not posting for the past few weeks. I haven't done anything and I just feel fine with that. It doesn't change. I'm still working on projects. I'm still doing things. And if it's not creative and fun, I don't want to do it. And I'm not going to do it. And so I just, I have a strategy, right? I have my like outlook and then I don't do it because it doesn't feel like, and it's okay. It's okay. It's okay when it doesn't feel, because it's an extension of I think that the way we can see it is that social media is an extension of our own expression of like the things that are happening in our lives and how we want to share them with others. And if we're in a place of processing our feelings, our ideas, and we're coming and sharing them, then when they land on someone else, maybe it's not going to land in the way with that intention that we wanted, because we're still processing and it's not something that's fully kind of grounded in that way. And so I tend to think about it in those terms. And I encourage people in my community to also think through and not dump, because we love to dump, not dump unprocessed feelings or ideas on others, because it just weighs. We need quality of an expression of who we are with others versus the quantity of just doing it because we think that we need to do it.
Mhm.
So that's just, yeah, I've been kind of offline for the past few weeks because I've
I
been
love that.
in my own, and I'm processing my own stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a great just like takeaway in general, regardless of what space we're in, what community we're a part of. It's just like doing like a check-in, before we make the post, before we send the email. It's just like kind of checking in with ourselves first. I think that's such a beautiful reminder. So I know we're getting close to time, and I want to be mindful of if we have questions. So if you have questions that you want to ask, you can drop it in the chat if you can't come off of mute or on camera. But I guess one of my final questions to you, um, Darlene, is I love to ask this question. I've asked it a bunch of times to Anne and on our different calls with list members. But I'm curious what title you would give this chapter of your life if you had to name it.
Really good question. What's the chapter? The whole thing that came up for me is like to be continued. I don't know why. It's just it's still, even when I think about my next book, it's being written currently. It's kind of in process, to be continued. That's the first thing that came up for me. I would love to know yours. I mean, what's yours?
You would think I would have an answer ready. I don't have one. I think, okay, if I think about it quickly, I would say uh peace, honestly. Like I'm kind of torn between like peace and overflow. Like I feel like there's like the peace that I feel is creating a sense of overflow where I'm able to pour into other communities. I'm able to pour into relationships in my life in a way that I hadn't in years prior. So, yeah. What about you, Anne? And also, Leah and Barbara, I'm curious if you have a word that comes to mind. Maybe you can share it in the chat also.
My chapter is um my chapter is in the part of the book where you're on the rise and you're not quite at the peak, but you know the peak is coming. Like I'm near this summit, right?
Mm,
I've got my support, I've got where I'm going. I've got the backpack. I'm going to call myself the Sherpa. I've got my backpack of like the stuff that's in there and the tools to help me get there. I've got my team around me, right? And I can see the summit. I don't know what that chapter is called, but when you like map out a book, I'm like right there before the peak.
I love that. I love that. Barbara says currently reading chapter Feel and Flow.
Love
Nice.
it. Yeah, feel it.
I want to get everybody to their next meeting, and I want to thank you so much, Fatima, for leading such a powerful conversation. Fatima is the best question asker I have ever met. Like, I'm a good question asker, but she like asks the questions that just have me floored. I like it. They're really so special. So thank you. And Darlene, you've given me so much in this hour, but also in our relationship and our friendship. And so I thank you for that. My final ask of you is, what can we do for you?
Thank you. Thank you both for creating this space in the community. Again, I will say, please let me know how I can be of support to this community and anyone that is connected to it. And my goal is to be able to get this book to people that are in the healing arts, that are connected to organizations that are supporting or employing healers. Being able to get this book to people is really my focus right now, in bringing them so they know that they're not alone in this process of building their businesses. And I just am sending, if anybody wants more information, just logging onto my website. I have a newsletter where I'll be sharing more, but we have a community group that is launching based to continue to support the Healers Playbook. It's called the Healer Space, and I'm really, really excited about that. I have an amazing partner that's come along to support kind of that part of the business, which a branding agency, and so we'll be able to support them in just all parts of their business. So yeah, just continuing to get the word out on the Healers Playbook.
All right, we will do that with you and for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time today. Thank you.
So, mwah.